Good morning, EPN. This is Dr. Jim Ippolito, the Rattan Law Endowed Professor of Soil Health and Fertility here at Ohio State School of Environment and Natural Resources. I'm checking in from San Antonio, Texas, at the American Society of Agronomy, Crop Science Society of America, and Soil Science Society of America annual conference. I hope you all have a great program this morning to celebrate the first ever Ohio Soil Health Week, and I'm looking forward to taking part.
Hello, Environmental Professionals Network. This is Dr. Sakthi Kumaran. I'm an Associate Professor of Soil Health at Central State University. Although I cannot be with you today as I'm at the Soil Science Society of America annual meeting, I wish you the best as you discuss the importance of soil health here in Ohio with a wonderful lineup of panelists. Talk soon.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Tim Haab. I'm the director of the School of Environment and Natural Resources, and it's my pleasure to welcome you here this morning. I'm going to shorten up my remarks here a little bit, so I might be a little bit scattered in what I say, but just to try to get us back on track here a little bit. But as you can see, you just heard from Jim and Sakthi, and they're in San Antonio at their national meetings right now, along with a number of other soil scientists. As we move forward with this first ever Ohio Soil Health Week, we're going to be making efforts in the future to have these types of programs and time it so that we'll have all of our soil scientists here so they can take part in the program. So look forward to that in the future. Before we hear from our panelist speakers that we're going to have this morning, I want to provide a quick backstory about the first ever Ohio Soil Health Week. Starting this year, the Ohio Soil Health Week will happen every second full week of November. The timing of the annual week for the soil health intentionally honors the great legacy of Dave Brandt, who was a trailblazer in sustainable agriculture here in Ohio. Among some circles, he's known as the godfather of soil health. We're extremely fortunate David's grandson, Chris, will be part of our panel this afternoon. Chris, can you please wave? Thanks for being here. The Ohio Soil Health Week is an effort of the Ohio Soil Health Initiative, which is a coalition of soil health-focused policymakers, practitioners, and researchers organized by OEFFA, the Ohio Ecological Food and Farm Association. Can Lauren Hirtle and Milo Petruzziello wave, please? Lauren and Milo from OEFFA were instrumental to the development of today's program, as OEFFA is today's co-host. You'll hear more from them today. Thanks, Lauren and Milo, and everyone from OEFFA for your support. If you're watching on YouTube, as usual, Molly Bean's posting a link in the chat. That link will take you to an online brochure, which is where you can find all the information about each of our speakers, including their headshots and professional bios. Excuse me. For in-person guests, you can take a picture of the QR code on your table to get the same information. There's also a few paper copies of the program on your table. If you can share those, that'd be great too. As always, students register at a reduced cost today, courtesy of various entities at Ohio State, including the School of Environment and Natural Resources, the Sustainability Institute, and the Facilities Operation and Development Department. We also thank ODNR, Division of Wildlife, for their sponsorship. All program sponsors are listed in the brochure. Sponsorship support allows us to offer low-cost participation to students who are the next generation of environmental professionals. Also, sponsorship allows us to connect with a wider audience by helping us to provide live streaming formatted EPN breakfast programs. If you're on YouTube, please feel free to use the chat. If you have any comments, thoughts, or questions during the program, the team will be reviewing these questions and will take questions from the in-person audience around 9:10 this morning. As always, this is an official zero waste event. Please pay attention to the signage as you're disposing of your materials so that we can maintain that status. You can compost any remaining food items on your plate, as well as sort out any materials destined for landfill or recycling. All right, so let's get started. Today you're going to hear from a variety of soil health experts and practitioners. Their biographies are in the program, on your table and online. After this morning's breakfast panel of speakers, we invite our in-person audience to stick around for an extended discussion on the implications of last week's general election for soil health policy at the state and federal levels. That conversation will continue here in the ballroom from 10 to 10:45 a.m. Make sure to drink enough coffee beforehand. Now, let's welcome to the podium Dr. Gary Pierzynski. Dr. Pierzynski is the Associate Dean for Research and Graduate Education in the College of Food, Agricultural, and Environmental Sciences here in Ohio State, and is also a soil scientist. So, welcome, Dr. Pierzynski.
Thank you, Tim. Glad you mentioned that I'm a soil scientist. One of my starting points for my brief remarks is that everybody in the room is either a soil scientist or wants to be a soil scientist. And it's never too late, so let's run with that. Thanks for the opportunity to be here this morning. As a soil scientist, I know this invitation went to the dean and she wasn't available, and I jumped right on it as what a wonderful opportunity for me, and I congratulate everyone who was involved in the inaugural Soil Health Week and look forward to that as we go forward. So I just wanted to present a little bit of history, not too much, and then get into what this all means for the land grant mission. So certainly the concept of soil health has been around for a long, long time. Maybe bits and pieces of it and a lot of terms and various terms such as soil sustainability, soil resilience, soil productivity, ecosystem services and what the soil provides there, soil function. Some of these have come and gone very quickly. Some of them have risen to what I call the level of a buzzword and then gone away. And a few of them have some staying power, and I'd just like to talk about a couple of those. The most recent one prior to soil health is this concept of soil quality. And soil quality, maybe you've heard about that or remember that from a decade or more ago. It supposedly reflects measurable soil chemical and physical properties and how that relates to the soil function. It's a very useful concept, but it introduced a lot of interesting ideas that have come forward into the soil health arena. So things like if you measure something in the soil, they can divide these measurable constituents into different categories, such as some of these have an optimum range. Some of them, when we think about contaminated soils, none is better, but yet tolerable limits are a possibility and introduces the concept of risk assessment. I'm scanning the room. I heard Nick Basta was here somewhere. He's the king of soil contamination. And we think about soil quality as you plot on the x-axis, the concentration of something or the physical property. What does the soil quality curve do as that substance increases or gets more severe? So that leads us into soil health, which incorporates everything that soil quality represented. Plus, it treats the soil, as a living, breathing organism, which it really is, and therefore it's various indicators of soil health, and there's immediate parallels to our own health, right? You can measure your blood pressure, that tells you one thing. Measure your blood sugar, that tells you another thing. You integrate across all of those, and you have some indication of your overall health. And soil health really has had a lot of staying power and appears to be with us, which is a great thing. And I thank NRCS and other entities that have taken hold of it and run with it because it is an extremely useful concept, as I think you'll see here shortly. Now, a lot of us are academics, and we look at something like soil health, and we tend to pick it apart. Well, what about this? What about that? Was that statistically significant? I need more data. And we need to set that aside because, the science is there. It is there. We're directionally correct. You talk about practices that improve soil health. They're not going to do any harm, certainly, and chances are they're going to do some good. So we need to keep that in mind and then really appreciate the practitioners out there who are out there working to enhance soil health across the entire landscape. So then I just wanted to finish up talking about the land grant mission. Of course, we talk about teaching, research, and extension, which is certainly a good way to look at it. From the research perspective, the thing that gets me excited about the land grant mission is that we take this, the entire spectrum of basic to applied research, and and we apply it to real world problems. And soil health is a fantastic example of that. So there's lots of researchable topics. There's the most basic of research that can be done. You know, think of the genetics and think of the applications of artificial intelligence to all these soil health parameters and what that can tell us. And then there's a very applied nature to it. You know, you're out there on the landscape. How do we implement these practices? What are the barriers to implementing those practices? And here the social science and the economics become very important. And we need to keep those things in mind as well, because they're all potentially barriers to adoption of better soil health practices. And one of my favorite ways to think about the land grant mission, you know, is my fictitious drive across the countryside. Actually start right here in downtown Columbus and drive in any direction and look out the window and look at the uses of the land. Obviously, you're going to see some buildings, but even in downtown Columbus, we have the riverfront park and trees and turf and soil, and soil health is important there. And of course, as you get out into the agricultural areas and just start adding up all of those acres in your mind and think about the impact that the land grant mission is having on that, what is grown there, the aesthetics, the health benefits, you know, the productivity, the corn, the soybeans, the animals, and other things that feed us. And think about that our role has such an important role in you know, the productivity, obviously, economics, the environment. All of that is potential impact of what we do. My other favorite way to think of the land grant mission is to walk up and down the aisles of the grocery store and look at the products and envision, you know, how we played a role in those products getting there. And to me, that's just the most exciting thing in the world. And we can't forget some of the challenges too. Many of us are academics, you know, eggheads. We do a study, we find a significant difference, we publish it, and we think, great, okay, but that doesn't get it used out there in the field. And what are those barriers to adoption of practices? They may have nothing to do with science whatsoever, but we need to keep those things in mind because, again, we're directionally correct, but we can't forget the final mile, the final application of those concepts. So thank you for allowing me to be here this morning, and this is just a wonderful event. I look forward to the discussions, and call up our next speaker.
Good morning. I'm Randall Reeder, and it's a privilege for me to have the opportunity to speak about David Brandt. Let's start at the end. David Brandt left a legacy for generations to come. The Ohio No-Till Council created a scholarship. You'll see a list on the screen. No-Till on the Plains out in Kansas named their No-Till Farmer of the Year award for David Brandt. The National No-Till Conference has a Dave Brandt legacy speaker. And perhaps the most important one is the Fields of Sinsinawa out in Wisconsin that Dave started dreaming about 5 years ago, and now it's a reality. Now, Dave always emphasized education for farmers. Just days before his death in late May 2023, a couple of us started writing an article about the dust storm tragedy out in Illinois along I-55 that killed 8 people. Don Rikoski, who's a native of Ohio, a soil scientist from right here at OSU, retired from ARS, he wanted a farmer's view included in that article. So we spent an hour with Dave discussing the outline. Now, Dave insisted that we emphasize education in this article, the need for education on no-till and cover crops, instead of blaming the farmer for doing tillage that probably he and his family had done for maybe 50 years or more. Concerning the legacy, the Brandt farm and cover crop business is in good hands for the future. Dave's son Jay and his wife Ann and their 2 sons, and Chris is here today, you'll hear from him later. They're continuing to build on the legacy of David Brandt. All right, back to the beginning. When David returned from serving in the Vietnam War, by the way, he got 3 Purple Hearts, awards. He got into farming with very little money, and with very little money, it was easier to get into no-till than it would have been to invest in tillage equipment. And in this picture, you'll see that he served on the board of the Fairfield County Soil and Water Conservation District. If you don't recognize him, he's in the center back wearing a suit, one of the few times you'll see him with a suit on. Well, Dave started using cover crops and found that they improved crop yields immensely. He was one of the first to experiment with cover crop mixes. In other words, multiple varieties, especially after wheat harvest, when the cover crops have plenty of time to grow and mature. Anywhere from 4 to a dozen different cover crops. He wanted ones that grew tall, ones that were shorter, deep-rooted, shallow-rooted, just to have all the advantages for the next year's crop and to improve the soil. He used legumes ahead of corn to provide nitrogen. Oilseed radish was one of his favorites, and he always added a pound of sunflower seed, just to add some beauty to the field of cover crops. I love that picture, by the way. Another feature that he came up with is planting green. He was one of the first to do this. This was in 2008. Now, can you imagine anyone trying to run a soybean planter through a 6-foot tall cereal rye? But it works. And then a few days, for those of you not familiar with this process, a few days after planting the crop, then you go in and terminate the cover crop, and it provides a lot of benefits during the growing season. Now, Dave started hosting field days, usually in early April. We used to hold one every year. They became so popular that he built this big steel building that you see there in the background. Now, I called that the Brandt Convention Center, but in reality, he built it for the cover crop seed business that they started, Walnut Creek Seeds. At least once a year, he moved all the seed out of the way to the side of the building and hosted about 200 farmers to where they came to learn about and experience the benefits of continuous no-till and cover crops. Also, USDA, NRCS trained their new employees at Dave Brandt's farm. He always was eager to talk to extension folks also, get them trained and introduced to the value of soil health with continuous no-till. Let me throw in that Ohio State just received a patent on the soil health test kit developed mainly by Rafika Islam down at Piketon, and that's going to be a very valuable tool that farmers can use. Now, Dave was invited to speak at events across the country and Europe. He spent a week in France at the invitation of the Minister of Agriculture there. He was an early member of the Ohio No-Till Council. He served continuously on the board. He was president for 14 years, and when he retired as president, he continued to be on the board, but we presented this bench to him. And if you go to Farm Science Review, you'll have an opportunity to sit on that bench every year in the conservation area. Dave was named a no-till legend by the Lessiter Media Group that puts on the National No-Till Conference every year. Here he is with 5 other legends attending a conference. You'll probably recognize some of those folks. But here's the one that Dave is best known for, the meme that has been seen by millions of people around the world. It ain't much, but it's honest work. And when you think about it, that's a pretty good legacy also.
Hello, good morning, everybody. I'm Manbir. I'm an assistant professor of soil fertility in SENR department. Really glad to be here today. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. Soils are very near and dear to my heart, and really appreciate all you guys being here to celebrate this first ever Soil Health Week in Ohio. This is great. So we're going to talk about healthy soils. Dr. Pierzynski has already set a really solid stage about what soil health is. We will talk about what exactly theoretically it means, why we should be caring about it, and how we can really care about it and make it healthy. So soils, they're everywhere. I'm a soil fertility researcher. My aim is to plan out nutrients so I can produce good crops, economical crops, while maintaining environment quality. So I deal with soils on a daily basis when it comes down to crop production. You don't have to be a soil fertility researcher. Maybe you have a garden in your backyards or in urban sphere, a greenhouse where you're growing tomatoes. You deal with soils on a daily basis. If you don't do anything on that regard, you're a big recreational person. You go out in the woods, in the forest. Trees are growing because there is a soil in there. You don't have to go into the woods either. You walk across your neighborhood for a walk. Trees are there, grass are there, all they are growing on the soil. So it's everywhere. You can't really get away from the soils. Since it's everywhere, it's relevant to all of us. So we should be really caring about it. We should be really thinking about it critically so we can make it healthy. What exactly soil health is? We are celebrating soil health. Let's look at the theoretical definition of it. Soil health, it's the continued capacity of the soil to function as a living, vital ecosystem that sustains plants, humans, and animals. So I stressed on the function, healthy soils, why they are important to us, what they really do when they are healthy compared to when they are degraded. So as I said, healthy soils are essential to sustain us as a human being, and what's the most basic thing a human being needs? Food, fiber, fuel. For all the production of food, fiber, and fuel, what do we need? Where does this all come from? That comes from the soil. And what does a healthy soil do is, it makes sure that even in normal years, it's capable of producing good yields. But whenever things go wrong, extreme weather conditions, healthy soils give us an assurance that it will provide us good yields. For example, this year, it was a very severe drought in Ohio, all the way to D4 category. What happened? Here is a picture. Pictures speak louder than words, right? This picture was taken from a long-term tillage plots that we have at Ohio State University, and this is how the corn looked like. Wilted leaves, not super healthy. 20 feet apart in another plot, that's how corn looked like. Pretty happy. Same variety, same planting date, same nutrient management, same everything. What's the difference? Soils. This one has a relatively degraded soil compared to this is a healthy soil. Only difference is we have been practicing healthy soil health practices in this part compared to this one. And from that particular experiment, which is ongoing for more than 60 plus years at Ohio State University, we just summarized the data, and what we have observed is that over 60 years, wherever we were practicing healthy soil health practices, the yield difference between degraded and healthy soils is about 26 bushels of corn per acre. That's huge. It's a big deal, and especially when things go wrong like it went this year. Another important function is nutrient cycling. When we think about nutrients, we think, oh, so plants need nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Yes, that's important. Where do they get all these nutrients? Soil has to be there. That's what I work on daily basis. But at the same time, when we think about nutrient cycling, that nutrient cycling is not only important for plants, but also for our environment. We are in Ohio. These pictures are not new to us. Huge phosphorus losses into water bodies, algal bloom, eutrophication. I might be a little biased over here being a soil scientist, but I think if we want to tackle these wicked problems of providing good nutrients to the plants, but at the same time maintaining our environment quality, the secret, I think, lies beneath our feet. Understanding soils, making our soil healthy, understanding the soil phosphorus dynamics, and we can resolve these big issues to a large extent if we really understand our soils, if we really take care of our soil health. Third function, holding water in them. Imagine what happens when rain falls on a concrete pavement, rain comes over, everything goes down the drain. But if it's a healthy soil environment, something looking like this, good aggregates, good pore space, that water seeps into the ground, and that soil is usually capable of storing that water for a longer time, and whenever plants, animals need it, that water is taken up from that soil. Compared to if it's a compacted environment, if it's a degraded soil environment, water comes in and most of that goes down the drain like that happens on concrete pavement. It's a big deal, and I can go on and on and on for all the soil health benefits that soils provide to us. For example, filtering contaminants plays a huge role when it comes down to contaminants. Soils has the capacity of detoxifying or absorbing pollutants so we don't get exposed to them. A healthy soil is capable of mitigating crop diseases, withstanding soil erosion. Overall, big deal. We should be really caring about soils because that helps us to sustain our lives, plant lives, and animals' lives. So the question is, how do we really make our soils healthy? Very simple mantra on that. We gotta be following soil health principles, and there aren't like 20 of them, just 4 of them. Very first one is minimizing disturbance. If possible, reduce the tillage. If you can't get rid of tillage fully on your farms, at least reduce the intensity of tillage. Second principle is maximize the soil cover. The worst thing, or one of the worst things that you can do with the soil is to leave the soil bare. Once it's bare, it's exposed to all the soil and wind erosion forces. So keep it covered with residue, keep it covered with mulch, keep it covered with cover crops. Randall was mentioning about cover crops. Great strategy to make soils healthy. Increase the biodiversity. Do not go from corn over corn over corn, or tomato over tomato over tomato. Have some biodiversity, include soybeans, include cover crops in that system, so the soils can get biodiversity benefits from there. Lastly, maximizing living groups. Again, going back to the definition, soil is not an inert material. It's a living ecosystem. There's a lot of biology in the soil. What do living organisms do? They eat. And to eat, to survive, they need food. And the source for that food is when some kind of plants and roots are growing in the soil. So that's another short form to get on a path to increase the soil health. So if we follow these soil health principles, we are on a good trajectory, good direction, as Pierzynski said. We are directionally going good to improve our soil health. An example, carbon. It's a big deal. Whether you are involved in crop production, whether you are involved in some kind of environment policy networks, or another environment quality conversations. Carbon is a big deal, right? Here is an example what has happened over the years. This is a graph showing on x-axis years, and on y-axis I have carbon. Hundreds of years ago, we kind of started here. This is a relative axis. Starting at 100, we started cultivating our soils. The carbon level started decreasing. Now we are over here. We can't really change what happened in the past, but we can really make informed decisions today so we don't go down the drain on this trajectory. What we need to do, we have to start following soil health principles. Minimize the disturbance, which could be no tillage. Cover the soil using cover crops, or intensification of our ecosystem, including cover crops, including perennial crops, so we can really take care of our soils, get to the soil what it really needs to have a healthy environment. Wrapping up with the takeaways for today, soil is not inert, it's definitely not a dirt. Why? Because it's very vital to sustain us, to sustain plants and humans. On daily basis, soils undergo degradation, so we really got to be thinking about soils on our daily basis as well. What we need to do is to make informed decisions, follow soil health principles so we can have healthy soils, not only in the farms, in your backyards, in the pasture lands, in the urban spheres, gardens and beyonds. Finally, if you ever have any questions related to soil health, Ohio State University has this wonderful site on soil health. It has a tab where you can submit your questions and soil health experts will answer those within 24 to 48 hours. With that, thank you very much for your attention. If you ever need to get in touch with me, that's my contact information. Again, thank you for the invite, Joey. Have a great soil health week. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Manbir. It is a big deal. It's all a big deal. And I'm Amalie Lipstreu. I work for the California Climate and Agriculture Network. Why is somebody who works for California Climate and Agriculture Network here? CalCan is the home for something called the National Healthy Soils Policy Network. This network supports more than 30 states working to advance soil health policy and programs that help farmers realize their soil health goals and help communities to realize the many co-benefits of those investments. So we're going to just take a little bit of a shift here right now, going from the academic and scientific perspective to talk a little bit more about policy and practice. And I definitely want to thank Dr. Pierzynski for talking about how we are directionally correct. We spend a lot of time sometimes debating about what we should and shouldn't be doing, but we know there's a lot that we can do right now. Back to this Healthy Soils Policy Network. Since the formation of that national network, our members have played active roles in the introduction of 62 pieces of soil health legislation, the successful passage of 31 soil health bills, and the creation of 7 state soil health programs. Outside of California, they have secured at least $48 million in state budget appropriations for soil health initiatives as of January 2024. And the Ohio Ecological Food and Farm Association has been an important partner in this network for more than 4 years. So you can read all about our great panelists in your packet today, but welcome to Jim, Bridget, Chris, and Milo, and Amanda Hernandez is on her way and will be joining us shortly. But before we turn it over to some questions and discussion from our panelists, I'd like to just set a little bit of context. Soil is the basis of human development, and the current farming footprint is 1/3 of the Earth's surface. To quote a highly respected farm policy expert, Jonathan Koppes from the University of Illinois, the demise and collapse of a civilization can be calculated as the amount of time it takes people to waste the soil resource. Using conservation to address natural resource concerns, including soil conservation and health, requires public policy solutions. These solutions started on the federal level in the early 1900s and were accelerated when the first Farm Bill was enacted in 1935 in response to the deadly synergy of the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl. And given the lessons of the Dust Bowl, one would think that soil loss and soil quality would have been well addressed in the almost 90 years since that time. One would also be wrong. USDA estimates that more than 1.7 billion tons of soil is lost every year, and that does not even begin to address the amount of soil that is significantly degraded, as Manbir mentioned. necessitating the use of ever-increasing amounts of synthetic inputs that affect biodiversity, public and environmental health. Using those previous soil loss estimates, more than 10 billion tons of soil have been lost just since the last Farm Bill was passed in 2018. And investments in soil health are part of farm bills, which is an omnibus piece of legislation that's passed once every 5 years, but they're only a small part, as conservation is the smallest of 3 major components, agricultural components, of that legislation, with the largest being crop insurance subsidies at $8 to $10 billion per year, Title I program payments at $5 to $7 billion per year, and then a broad range of conservation programs with different priorities at $4 to $6 billion each year. 2 years ago, when the Inflation Reduction Act was signed into law by President Biden, almost $20 billion of additional funding was targeted to farm conservation, with a focus on practices that will help mitigate and adapt to climate change. Of those practices, soil health investments are a key part. Yet even with that major infusion of conservation resources, of every 4 farmers that apply to working land conservation programs through NRCS, 3 are turned away because of a lack of funding. Thousands of farmers seeking support to implement these practices are not meeting their conservation goals. We have work to do and more funding for agricultural conservation and to support farmers is needed. So let's get started with the experts in the room. And we're going to start with a question for Amanda, well, not Amanda yet, but Jim and Chris right now. For people who may not work with the land on a regular basis, can you concretize all of these concepts in the academics that we've been talking about this morning? What does soil health look like? And contrast it with barren or neglected soil, and also share something that non-farmers might not understand about why soil health is the foundation of a healthy agriculture and healthy communities.
Yeah, this is something that when, say, my grandfather would talk to a farmer, this is the first thing that you have to set up with them. What does having this do for you? And the easiest thing to explain to a new farmer what the impacts are is how much soil you are going to lose. As Amalie said, we lose an incredible amount of soil into mostly the Mississippi River and down into the Gulf of Mexico every year. And the easiest way to see this is in gullies or washouts in fields. But a part of the other problem is the amount of nutrients that farmers put into these fields that are then carried away in the soil that is pulled away by the water. In the studies that are being done on our farm, we have roughly a quarter of the nutrient loss per acre that a conventionally tilled farmer does. If you were to look at the Gulf of Mexico right now, the last I checked, there is a dead zone where algae blooms have killed all marine life that is roughly the size of Rhode Island. We can cut that by 75%. If the entire Mississippi River watershed was had some form of cover on it. Now that's a very large goal and something that is a very far away from happening, but that is the impact of what's coming off of a farmer's field. Farmers always say, I want people to leave me alone so I can go about my work. Well, that's great, but your work is not leaving other people alone. So until that happens, farmers unfortunately are not going to be left alone. And that's my goal, that's my grandfather's goal, is to get farmers to want to adopt these practices themselves. so that we do not have to have the government coming in and telling us what we can or cannot be doing. Another way to look at this is the amount of water that is infiltrated by your soil. On an average farmer's field during a large rainstorm, about 1/4 inch of the topsoil will infiltrate any rain, and it can take of maybe an inch, maybe 2 inches of rain, and it will infiltrate that into the soil profile. On my farm, I can absorb a 9-inch rain event in 1 hour. That is a significant reduction in the amount of soil that leaves my fields, because if the water's going down, it's not going into the river, and it's not taking nutrients with it. So that is the biggest thing that my family talks about when we're trying to get farmers to understand what it is the effects of this are.
Thank you. So as a non-farmer interested in healthy soil, I think there's 2 main reasons. One is clean water. As Manbir alluded to, if you have a healthy soil that can absorb and hold on to water, you're going to have less runoff and less leaching of phosphorus and nitrogen into our groundwater and into our streams and lakes and rivers. So everybody's interested in clean water, even if you're a non-farmer. The other thing is healthy food. In the last 10 years, there's been a tremendous amount of research in the area of metabolomics, looking at the metabolic products of our foods. And it is shown clearly that the amount of minerals, the nutrient density, the phytochemicals, all of these are much higher when it's grown in biologically alive, healthy soil. So if you're interested in clean water and healthy food, you need to be interested in healthy soils.
Thanks so much, Jim and Chris. Bridget, you work for Hirtle Farms, where John Hirtle was a pioneer of sustainable agriculture starting in the 1970s and continuing until he passed in the year 2000. Can you speak to some of the groundbreaking work that has been done on Hirtle Farms around soil health and organics?
So John started transitioning parts of the farm over in 1979. In the meantime, still had the smaller canning facility that was run by the Hirtle family and still is today. Needing a place to take the food waste, he decided to compost it and put it back in the soil. We're heavy clay up in that area for the most part, and he's seen that there was a need to sustain that soil in order to produce tomatoes or any other type of row crops that he needed to do. By 81, he's certified 1,600 acres organic through OEFFA and OCIA. And from that point on, soil health, as a farmer, he saw the difference. So in his yields, in the health of his plants, having to do cover cropping, rotation to make sure that disease and pests wouldn't linger around into the soil. And then he also worked with OSU, North Carolina State, on SENR. He was heavily involved in that as well. He also believed in resting the soil, not harvesting a crop off of it, giving it that 1 year just to kind of get itself back to sustain itself and get the biology back in on its own. But we still do a lot of cover cropping, obviously. We don't have alfalfa in the rotation anymore just because of the price of it, to put it in there and not be able to take it off. So we used a lot of alfalfa for green manure, and those practices are still like we use on the farm today for our certified organic, which we're at 1,500 acre certified organic today.
Thanks so much, Bridget. Milo, I know your purview is mostly state and federal policy, but can you maybe expound upon what Jim shared about how soil health is important for people who care about good food and public health, and then share a little bit about the Ohio Soil Health Initiative that OEFFA founded and why you brought this coalition together to start the Ohio Soil Health Week.
So, I mean, I think it really, as far as the general public, as Jim pointed out, like, everybody eats. And I think if we want to have good food for everyone and have it easily accessible, have it convenient, have it high quality with all of the nutrients and health benefits that Jim spoke about, then what we really need to be able to do is to build more scale for these practices across agriculture. That's really the only way we're going to get there. I'm very lucky. I live close to a farmer's market. I can shop there. I know many of the farmers. They're lovely folks, and I really love their being able to support their businesses. That's not practical for everybody. If we want everybody to have it, we really need to invest in it, and invest in it across agriculture, across Ohio. And part of the reason why we at OEFFA and all of our partners in Ohio, in OSHI, Ohio Soil Health Initiative, came together is because we see soil health as an opportunity to build that bigger tent. It's something that we can all agree on, right? Whether you are an organic farmer or a conventional farmer, whether you are in the environmental organizations, whether you're with farm organizations, regardless of your personal politics, soil health is something that is both incredibly powerful to address some of the problems that all of the speakers have spoken about today, and also to do it while investing directly in the farmers who need investment, right? Farming is incredibly risky. It is incredibly low margin. It is incredibly hard work, and as Randall pointed out quite well, and Dave had said, blaming farmers is not the way that we're going to get to where we need to get. We need to have a positive vision that we can all agree on, and that allows us to really build the scale to have the broader impact that we need to address these problems while feeding ourselves better, which makes everybody feel better, and investing in farmers so that their businesses can thrive and their communities can thrive. And while we also get, cleaner water, cleaner air, healthier food, less soil running off into the Gulf of Mexico. These are all good things. So yeah, that is why, I think it was about 5 years ago, we started having conversations with other partner organizations, some of whom are here today. I know folks like Rural Action, Nature Conservancy, Ohio Environmental Council, Farmers Union, various members from soil and water conservation districts across the state, just as well as farmers who live this every day, to say, how can we come together around soil health and really push the state to do more? Because, despite the federal investment that Amalie spoke about, which, the Inflation Reduction Act made a pretty significant additional investment on top of the conservation programs that we already had in the Farm Bill, that's still not enough, as Amalie already said, right? We need to do more.
Thanks, Milo. I'm going to stick with you here for just a minute. There is a lot of talk now about soil in relation to carbon. Manbir spoke to the role of carbon in her presentation. Can you talk about the role of soil health in climate change and what the opportunities are for farmers to potentially be part of the solution?
Yeah, so soil sequesters carbon. It's really that simple. And also these practices, in addition to sequestering carbon on their own, allow farmers to use less inputs that come from chemicals. And not only does it do all of that, it also does it in a way that invests directly in the farm profitability over time. And so it is an opportunity to address climate change with technologies we already have, right? We know how to cover crop. I mean, we're getting better at it, obviously, and we know how to graze animals on pasture, right? These are time-honored agricultural practices that can have a massive impact that we can implement now, today. You know, we don't need, and while implementing them now, today, making those economic investments in our communities that we all benefit from in addition to the environmental benefits over time. Even if you are more focused on, you know, the economic health of your community than you are thinking about the Gulf of Mexico, that investment still benefits you right now. And I think that's really, soil health is one of the opportunities to address climate change that, again, we can all agree on, and it will work. And that's really, really massively important in this day and age. We need solutions that we can agree on and that will actually have impact.
Thanks, Milo. Bridget, you kind of alluded to kind of the size of Hirtle Farms. It's a fairly large commercial farm, food and seed and compost business. From that business perspective, how does the extreme weather that's a byproduct of climate change factor into the business decisions and the day-to-day operations up at Hirtle Farms?
Well, we're definitely seeing like the intensity of the rains in the spring. So it makes it for a smaller window to plant and get things in timely. Being organic, we're always later than the conventional growers anyway, because we're having to wait for the first couple flush of weeds and then work the ground and prepare it to plant in. So the planting window is very narrow to get the crops in the ground. The other thing we're seeing this year more so is with the tomatoes, there's no transition between the night and day temperature. It's not cooling down enough at night, so it's not getting the tomatoes to turn red. So that means when you go to harvest them, which we do for our canning facility, so it's mechanical harvest, it's on a bigger scale, but there's actual color sorter on there because they want the red tomatoes. So you have a lot of waste that's going back on the ground because it's kicking off the pales and the greens, and that's because the tomatoes aren't turning because of the higher temperatures at night. We're also seeing this year with the drought in a good way, though, because we did have a drought. We had a really wet spring, and then I think we went maybe, I think it was 63 days without maybe a half an inch of rain up in our area. We were in Wood County. And we cover everything with cover crops, obviously. But we did see a big difference even with our conventional neighbors of us that cover cropped and the ones that didn't with the drought. As far as our corn was a lot healthier looking, and it yielded and greened up. So, you know, that's a plus with using the cover crops and just the rotation and building up that organic matter. On our compost side of things, we have, we started out in 79, like I said, with John, and I think we did 100 cubic yards compost a year. We're up to about 5,000 cubic yards compost a year. So that makes a big difference. Food waste, we get about 100 ton a day of food waste into our compost facility, along with manures. So we're seeing more need for the compost to go back in versus the chemicals to go back in, because compost, if you apply it in the fall versus the spring, then it's there for you in the spring, and you're not having to do anything when it comes to the weather in the spring. It's there, it's worked in, and you're ready to plant right into it. So we see an uptick with the wet springs as well of conventional guys using more compost because they can get it in the fall, they can use it, and they don't have to worry about getting some more nutrients there in the spring, or at least it's cutting their synthetic nutrients down, the conventional guys. So seed-wise, we're looking at different, we're seeing a lot more use of cover crops, but they're wanting a different diversity of cover crops so they could see that in the soil. Because of the wet springs, they can't come in to terminate them correctly. So they're trying to diversify the different types of mixes and blends that they're able to manage and winter kill. Well, because of the warm winters, not everything is winter killing either. So they're having to, or we are having to mind what we're putting in even as a cover crop now, because we're counting on a warmer winter and a wetter spring. And that makes organic farming, well, farming in general, but especially organic farming, a little difficult.
Thanks, Bridget. So it's interesting that, these soil health practices really do buffer and offer resilience to farmers, but still so many ways you're seeing these impacts that are challenging the operation and the viability. I'm curious, Jim, on your livestock operation, can you speak to the practices and systems that you've put in place and how they've bolstered your resilience?
Sure. So my farm is in Highland County, and we experienced the D4 drought this year. And there are three things that come to mind that allowed my farm to be fairly resilient. One was the soil organic matter. Over 20 years, we've been able to increase it from 1.5% to 4.5%. And by doing that, we're able to infiltrate water better. I'm not as good as Chris at 9 inches, but I can do 4 inches an hour. And also, for every 1% increase in soil organic matter, you can hold an extra acre-inch of rain, or 28,000 gallons. So not only do you infiltrate it, but you can hold on to it. So what happened with us, we actually had very good rains in April and May. And because we were able to absorb and hold on to that water, we were able to grow a lot of grass. We primarily have cool season pastures, and you'll get actually 60 to 70% of the entire year's growth in April and May. So we had tremendous amounts of grass that we grew. The second factor is our grazing management. We rotationally graze, short periods of grazing followed by long periods of recovery. So on any given acre of our farm, we will graze that 15 days a year, and we'll have 350 days of recovery. So we were able, with all that grass, and by allocating it that way, we actually got around the entire farm 3 times in those first 2 months to capture all that grass. And then the third thing that made us resilient was biodiversity. We have a lot of warm season grasses in our pastures. So when we got into those, we had good rainfall in May and June, then it shut off and we virtually had no rain for the next 110 days. But because we have the warm season grasses, they love those 90-degree temperatures, and those C4 grasses are much more efficient at water usage than the cool season grasses. And then we did end up supplementing hay for about a month in August. Latter part of August, first part of September, we continued our rotational grazing, but we supplemented with hay to be able to slow down our moves, from 1 day to 3 days to give the other pastures more time for recovery. And then we got a huge rainfall. We got close to 5 inches over 3 days from the hurricane, and now we're back up and running as if nothing had happened. We did use a month worth of hay in August, and normally we stockpile our fescue and we'll graze into winter We usually feed hay only about 30 to 45 days, usually the end of February, 1st of March, we're feeding hay. This year, we will not have stockpiled as much as we normally would have, so we'll probably be feeding more hay. And the fourth thing is luck. Luck, you never want to count out luck. So this year, for the first time, I finally decided I'm not going to make hay, I'm going to buy my hay. So I was able to have my alfalfa orchard grass hay field, and alfalfa is very drought tolerant, and I was able to graze my hay field, and I bought all of my hay. I finally found a farmer that makes really good alfalfa orchard grass hay. I called him up in March, and I said, I'll take all of your first cutting, just bring it from the field to my barns. So I filled all of my barns with my hay when it wasn't too expensive. Now you can't find it, and if you do find it, you're going to pay an arm and a leg for it. So luck also played a role, but there's no question you're more resilient. The soil organic matter just makes you so much more resilient. And the other thing is you can go, we oftentimes have dry spells. We'll go 3 or 4 weeks without rain, and then we'll finally get rain. Well, this year was worse. But on those episodes, when we get 3 or 4 weeks without rain, we don't even notice it. I mean, it doesn't even bother us because we've hold on to all of that water. So yeah, the soil organic matter is huge.
Thanks so much, Jim. I wish we had more time to really go into soil organic matter because the changes you've seen in the increases on your farm are incredible. I wish people could hear a little bit more about how you got there. But we have time just for a couple more quick questions. And Chris, I really just wanted to give you an opportunity. Your family has just been, again, such pioneers for cover cropping in the Midwest and beyond. And any just closing words you might want to share with us about the lessons that were really paramount that you learned from David Brandt?
So there were 2 big things that I learned. One is kind of broadly applicable to life, and that is that the perfect is the enemy of the good. You're never going to get exactly what you want when you want it. So you need to be able to say, this thing that I'm getting now, it's not perfect, but it's an improvement, so I'll take it. And if you can't do that, you're going to wind up stonewalling yourself, and you're not going to get where you want to be. And the other one is be patient, mostly when it comes to when you turn on the combine. But those are the 2 big lessons that I got.
Thank you. I think he was a sage when it comes to public policy, too. Perfect can't be the enemy of the good. And then to close us out, Milo, just give us a quick update on where efforts are right now at the Ohio State House and things you would like to see Ohio legislators adopt to realize more of the kind of soil health benefits we've been talking about this morning.
Sure. So first thing is, of course, happy Soil Health Week, everybody. We are, yeah, you can clap. So we are hopeful that there is currently a bill, House Bill 162, that will, among other things, formally declare this second full week in November Ohio Soil Health Week. My understanding is the Senate Ag Committee is actually meeting today. I don't know if it's on the agenda or not, but we do hope that that will pass out of committee and then pass the General Assembly this session, so that not only will we be able to do this informally, but the state will formally bless it for us for all time and give us an opportunity to have this conversation bigger and louder, while also honoring David Brandt and his family and their great contributions to soil health. But beyond that, spreading the message of soil health to all farmers here in Ohio and support their work. The second big thing is we're hopeful that the House Bill 568 will pass. We would like to see the state declare a Healthy Soils Task Force, which would allow multiple stakeholders from across agriculture, including farmers, including researchers, including members from soil and water conservation districts, nonprofit types like myself, and other environmental groups to come together and really take a really good hard look at what does a soil health policy look like for Ohio. You know, I think we really want to make sure that any soil health investments that we can make in the state make sense for the state and make sense for the farmers in the state, and that they're farmer driven and really help farmers, again, do better, because I don't know a single farmer who doesn't want to farm better. And that's really fundamentally what this is about, is we want to help farmers farm better and help each other farm better, right? Often farmers, they get the best information from other farmers. That's why David Brandt was so important, is because he was a farmer himself, spreading that message in a way that is far more powerful than anything I could ever say. So that Healthy Soils Task Force gives us an opportunity to really take a good hard look at what we can do better, what will make sense for farmers in Ohio, and what will ultimately benefit our entire state and all of our communities with better food, healthier soils, healthier water, healthier air, healthier environment. And that's really what we're here to do.
Thanks so much, Milo. And to our panelists, we have time for some questions, but Joe has a brief announcement.
Thank you all. We love healthy soils. We don't love unhealthy microphones. Unfortunately, we have some not working microphones, which we would normally be running around in the audience for you to ask questions. We do have dozens of folks following us on YouTube right now who have sent really nice comments in and thanking the panel, etc. In order for them to hear the questions that we're going to ask, we ask that when you raise your hand and ask a question, ask it loud enough. Molly Bean is in the back. She's going to just transcribe it so the folks on YouTube can hear what the question is, and we'll keep the microphone up here. So please raise your hand if you have a question and go ahead and ask, and I'll also be taking any questions that come through on YouTube.
That was just a question about Gabe Brown and Alan Savory.
So Gabe Brown has been to my farm several times, and he made one of his videos on our cover crop practices on our farm. So I've talked with him a few times. My family knows him fairly well, so he's someone we're pretty well familiar with. Yeah.
Question on technology and farming equipment. With GPS and spatial analysis tools, farmers can kind of look at profit loss on a sub-field basis now. Is that going to improve soil health by farmers seeing that they can add less amenities to the soil, they can put conservation in portions of fields that are less productive, or is this current generation of farmers not adopting some of this GPS technology that are available in modern tractors today?
So the GPS equipment is being extremely widely adopted. It has a significant reduction in operator stress because it takes many functions off of the operator himself and automates them. What you can actually do with this equipment, for those who don't know, is you can have, say, waterways inside of a field that normally you would have to drive around, and it would greatly extend the what's called headlands, or areas where you usually have to manually steer the tractor around the edge of the field. With this new GPS equipment, you can actually have your implement, whether it's a planter, your chemical sprayer, or a seed drill that would plant cover crops, turn on and off when you are inside these waterways, so you do not affect what's going on. You can split your field up in ways that will benefit water drainage. And these practices are, as I said, they're being much more widely adopted. And that's kind of as a secondary effect, like I said, of the operator comfort or fatigue.
Once in a while, they let me get in one of these things. So, but I noticed that you can monitor your yield better. So we've actually transitioned. I'd say a total on the farm of maybe 45 acres into like a working buffer because it wasn't producing. So we were able to save on seed, and we did a 7-year kind of study, our own study, to see the yields on certain parts of some of the farms that we have. Because, you know, some farms we have 30 different soil types in it, so it's just hard to treat it all the same. So we've been able to save money on seed then, but then up where we are in Wood County, we were able to capitalize on some of the working buffer funding that you get through like FSA or whatever. So I would definitely say that it made a difference in how we were farming with the GPS guidance and who we had in there, and anybody can just kind of get in. The boundaries are set. You're not having, and you're managing your time better. So it's more efficient on fuel using, even with your tractors and your equipment and everything. But I guess the biggest one was being able to transition those acres across the board into something beneficial versus just trying to get a crop off of it.
Just a note, if any of our friends online have a question, please feel free to type it in. Other questions? Yeah.
So, a lot of the discussion, it really leads to, this is a no-brainer. At the minimum level, we have no-till, and then we also have cover crops as the next addition to it. The numbers that are tough for me to get past why the resilience for landowners and farmers to convert, because again, farmers are some of the best number crunchers that exist in business. Why are we still at, again, I know the general numbers, we're at about 25% of the agriculture row crop at no-till in the state of Ohio, and we're still relatively 3 to 4% in cover crops. What is it going to take to make this change if it's such a no-brainer to the agricultural community?
So from an outside perspective, the effects that cover crops have on, say, the surrounding ecosystem, it is a no-brainer. When you're talking about the management of a crop system, cover crops introduce several factors for the farmer that can become problematic. So corn is an incredibly picky plant. What it does is when it comes out of the ground, it senses the near infrared rays that are reflected off of nearby green material, that being plants. If it senses any, it says there is competition next to me, I need to outgrow it. And it reduces root growth in order to grow above it. And this will hurt it later in the season when it is trying to get nutrients to fill out the ear. So oftentimes farmers who don't understand this and they don't understand how to use a cover crop system effectively will see massive yield reductions in their cornfields. And in an industry where profit margins are rather low, that is unacceptable for many farmers. And that is why my grandfather was so focused on education, so that farmers would understand how to utilize it effectively so that these did not become impassable barriers for farmers who are trying to enter this system. And the other half of that is that it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. And the average farmer in this country is, quite frankly, approaching the age of retirement. So when a farmer has a problem where they may lose the farm, that is when it is easy to get in there and get them into a new system because they know they need to change. But there are a lot of farmers that after the mid to late 2000s, where the agricultural economy was fantastic, they're still kind of riding on the equity and all of their good practices at that time, and they still do not need to change their practices because they are not seeing the economic effects of the last 2 years of the worst agricultural economy since the 1980s. And those are the primary drivers right now.
A lot of the agricultural acres are rented. So if they're putting in something that they don't own, I mean, it's costly to put in cover crops. But if there's more funding available for a farmer, and I've had this discussion with Milo a lot of times, to treat the soil as a part of their equipment for their business, right? They fund factories, they fund, people to keep their businesses going outside of agriculture. They should fund the farmers to continue to take care of their soil. It's a benefit for everybody in the end. We have H2 Ohio up in our area where we are for the lakes. It's a program. But not everybody participates in it because they don't know if they're going to have that land down the road. So they're thinking they're investing all this, but they don't own the land.
Thanks for bringing that in, Bridget. I think that, some of these practices take time to work. And if you're on a year-to-year lease, or if you're facing, as Chris mentioned, these economic pressures, farmers need help offsetting that risk and weathering that time period to when some of these practices are really going to show the benefits. We have time for one more quick question. I know there was one in the back there. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm a PhD student here at SENR. I'm studying stream health and native fish ecology. And stream health, obviously there's an intersection there with soil health and no-till ag and things like that. So I was just wondering if you have any reflections on if stream health, if surrounding stream health is that something that people think about when they're thinking about conservation practices on their land? If you have any personal anecdotes about that, because obviously we have H2 Ohio, like this is some kind of priority on the state level, but I'm just kind of curious on the work at the ground level, if there's any reflections on that.
So in our area, stream health enters into the mind in the spring when the stream overflows. Beyond that, it's more of an out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. We don't have that many large tributaries in our area. So I can't really speak to what it's like beyond that for other farmers.
I'll just comment real quick. Yeah, I know exactly where the water runs from my farm. On the road frontage there, most of that, there's probably about 50 acres that run into Rocky Fork Lake. And interestingly, there's a huge grant to plant cover crops in that area because of the sediment load that's running into the lake and requiring, hundreds of thousands of dollars of dredging every year to take out that sediment. And then the rest of my farm, I'm actually at the headwaters of Brush Creek that runs then ultimately into the Ohio River. So I'm very cognizant of that, and I invite anybody at any time after a big rain to come to my farm, and you'll see that the water that's running off is absolutely crystal clear. It's crystal clear because it's all permanent grasslands. I have no bare soil anywhere, and most of the water gets absorbed. But if with a heavy rain, we still get some runoff. But yeah, I think every landowner should absolutely understand where the water goes that comes off of his land.
Thanks so much, Jim, and thank you. Let's give a round of applause to our panelists. So you're welcome to stay engaged during the conversations around soil health policy in the current political context post-election. There's some wonderful exhibitors out here with useful information that you can view. And again, stay around for that policy discussion if you're interested. Thanks so much.
Hi, everyone. My name's Lauren Hirtle. I'm a grassroots policy organizer at OEFFA. I focus on state policy there. I'm so excited to see you all here today. I was telling Joe that I was just sitting there cheesing at everybody. You know, anytime a farmer gets on a microphone, I'm just so happy, because that's a lot of what my job as an organizer is myself taking a step away from the mic and getting farmers up to the microphone. So I just wanted to thank Harrison, Joe, and Hallie for organizing this wonderful event this morning. And I am here to go through the rest of the events that we have prepared for Ohio Soil Health Week. We actually have 19 events throughout this week, which started yesterday. It started on Sunday, on the 10th. We had 2 farm tours that day, so we can kind of move down the screen as I talk. Martin Hollow Heritage Farm Tour, Jim helped with that one. Joe helped organize this farm tour here, which I heard went wonderfully, even though it was raining throughout the day. We have the EPN Breakfast today. We have a few more events throughout the day today, including this event, which is, I think, across the way. I'm planning to head there later. We have a wonderful presentation with the Nature Conservancy, who is an Ohio Soil Health Initiative member. And we've been talking a lot about larger scale gardening, larger scale farming today. So there are some opportunities for folks who are maybe gardeners, home gardeners, community gardeners, smaller scale farmers, where they can also plug into Ohio Soil Health Week. You can hear from Milo and Amalie again this evening as part of OEFFA's farm tour and workshop series. This is the last session. It's the USDA&U covering conservation programs. There's a soil health breakfast tomorrow in Licking County, another partner with the Ohio Soil Health Initiative. Celebrating soil health in the Miami Valley, also tomorrow. I know there are so many events. Those Who Feed Us, an art exhibit here at OSU. I'll be at that event. Super excited about that. A BIPOC farm tour circuit with Agraria out in Yellow Springs. A soil health rally, which is with our partners Rural Action down in Athens. If you want to hear more from me, I'll be speaking at that. An artist talk, again, connected with that art show here at OSU. A soil health testing live stream with our partners at the Muskingum Soil and Water Conservation District. Again, that's geared more towards home gardeners, community gardeners, but anyone can listen into that one. And Take Action for Soil Health. This is a not as a solid in-person event, but of course, myself and our policy team at OEFFA really want you to take action in those policy items in the State House that Milo mentioned earlier. So we'll be doing that all day. I'll be on Instagram, so check me out, OEFFA Policy over there. And then we have a Healthy Soil Festival on the last day of Soil Health Week on the 16th. Gorman Heritage Farm out near Cincinnati is doing a soil health farm tour. Also in Cincinnati, we have a lot of great events going on in Cincinnati. Bring your own bucket compost sale. And then lastly, myself and my colleagues on the policy team at OEFFA will be holding a virtual screening of Common Ground, which is a kind of a blockbuster film that focuses on the importance of soil health. So thanks so much, everyone, and thanks to the host for all these events, and thanks to everybody who's going to attend them.
All right, thank you, everyone. Special thanks to Gary, Randall, and Manbir for your inspiring remarks. Thanks to Amanda, Jim, Bridget, Chris, and Milo for your contributions to the panel. And thanks, Amalie, for hosting the panel. I think we may have hit a record for the number of panelists that we had up here today. But we want to recognize each of you with a certificate. Joe and Harrison are going to be giving those certificates out. These are to acknowledge your work to help us learn and shape the world for the better. Thank you. Real quick, students in the room, raise your hands. Okay. I'm the last person to get in the way of your ability to network with others, so take a look around at the students here. This is an opportunity for them to network, get to know you a little bit better, so please take that opportunity as we move forward. Just want to let you know real quick about our upcoming EPN events. We have a December program coming up on December 2nd. That event, called Oh Deer, Collaborative Efforts to Create and Link Deer Management Plans Across Central Ohio. Unlike most of our EPN events, this event will occur during the evening of a Monday, not a Tuesday. You can register for the event today by following the details on the screen or by scanning the QR code at your table. I'm also happy to announce that EPN will be returning in 2025 on Tuesday, January 4th for moving methane, converting Ohio's dairy farm manure into an energy source. Save the date, registration will be open soon. Both the December and January programs on deer management and biogas will meet right back here in the 4-H Center and on your YouTube channel. If you're not already, we ask you to become an official EPN member. Joining the EPN is free and straightforward. All you need to do is create an account on our webpage. EPN membership is the single best way to stay updated about upcoming EPN programs and other events happening in our region. Members can also post their own events and job openings to the EPN website for everyone else to see. Follow the link on the screen to register as an EPN member. Once you join, you'll become part of an EPN member community, which is almost 2,400 people strong. Check out the list of environmental professionals who've joined the EPN membership directory in the last month. As a quick reminder, Mary Turisi from the Nature Conservancy and Lauren Hirtle from OEFFA will lead today's session on the elections implications for soil health policy, starting here at about 10 a.m. for our in-person audience only. I encourage you to use the time before the start of the policy to meet someone new. On a separate note, the College of Food, Ag, and Environmental Sciences is hosting a career fair on February 12th, 2025 in the Ohio Union. This career fair will be heavily attended by a broad range of environmental, sustainability, and agricultural majors. So if you're an employer and are interested in tabling, please see the registration details on the career fair flyer on your tables. One last piece of housekeeping, if you can help us out to maintain the zero waste initiative here for the event, any of your scarlet colored utensils, plates, other cups can go, you can scrape the food into the compost bin and return the reusable dining materials to the bins located near the exits. If you're unsure where to place your plates and utensils, no worries, just leave them on your table. We'll take care of the rest. Thank you. Have a nice day.